My name is Stacey Nassar. I am thankful that Shannon Hoven, who you guys listened to, I guess, a couple weeks ago, recommended me for this. Shannon and I, and also Annie Toto, who I believe had done a series of this as well, have worked together. We've been great allies with each other. So I'm going to go through my background and kind of my journey thus far in my career, just to give you guys a background of what I've been doing. And as mentioned before, I also really encourage any questions because this is about you guys and what you want to know and how I can help you. So as great as it is for me to talk about myself, it's about you guys, okay? So make sure you think of stuff anything that I can help you with. So I started, I was an athlete growing up. I played many different sports, basketball, soccer, softball, dance, always active. When I got to high school, I focused specifically on basketball, a little bit of soccer. When I got to college, it was kind of a shock because I went from doing a multitude of activities after school to kind of having to find a way to fill my own time. So I was born and raised in Connecticut. Lucky for me, about the time I was 10 years old, UConn women's basketball decided they wanted to win their first of many championships. And from about then, I knew I wanted to go to UConn for basketball in some capacity. I always thought I'd be a player. Unfortunately, I'm about 5'9" and very slow, so that was not in the cards for me. But when I got to UConn, I wanted to try out initially for the team. So I thought, look, I know I'm an average player, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give it a shot. I want to just see what I can do. So I met with the coaches. They gave me the schedule. I was showing up to workouts every morning, some at 5 in the morning, some later in the afternoon, but around my class schedule, going to any workout I can do. Got to the point of tryouts, and I actually never went through with the tryout itself. There had been a little bit of lack of communication, knowing when it was going to be. I was a little scared. I kind of was like, you know what, forget it. I don't know. I don't care. So now you flash forward a few days later, and I regret it. So I went, met with Coach Oriemo over at UConn, asked him what I can do to still stay involved. He told me to talk to Jamel Elliott, who was the assistant coach at the time, and she sent me up to be a student manager. I had no idea really what a student manager was, other than the fact that my friends had done it in high school for our team, mainly for the fact that they could just hang out with us at games and such. So I got brought on as a student manager at UConn. That meant attending practices, setting up for them, taking stats, running clock, recording. What I didn't realize is as you work your way up, that also means traveling. That means potentially going to Final Fours with the team. My senior season as a head manager, I went to the Virgin Islands with the team over Thanksgiving break. So while everybody else went home, I went with the team and had a free trip to the Virgin Islands. So what I want you guys to think about, number one, is that sometimes you're in high school, you're an athlete, you think that's your identity. You think that's something that you maybe have to continue in college. Well, I love to play, I want to continue to play. And if you're talented enough, then by all means, I think it's fantastic. If you're like me and you go to a bigger school and maybe you don't have the talent level, but you want to stay involved, there are absolutely ways to do that. So I would play intramurals with my friends and have fun and kind of let loose that way. At the same time, I got involved with the varsity level team at UConn and was open, a lot of opportunities were opened up for me that way as well. So if there's a sport that you're passionate about that you maybe want to learn a little more about and you choose a school where you're not going to play, there's still ways to do that. There's still ways to be involved. At UConn as well, again, we didn't win. I went to a Final Four. I also had decided that I wanted to major something in sports. So initially when I was heading into college, I thought maybe communications, maybe that's a way for me to stick with sports. But I knew deep down I really wanted to coach at the time. And I was meeting with my advisor. I hadn't declared a major yet. And I brought it up to him. I said, you know, I think I want to be in sports. I really want to coach. As it turns out, UConn had a coaching and administration major. I didn't know about that leading into that. But it's a very unique major. And one of the good things about it was that I was taking classes on a spectrum. So whereas if you go for finance, you're doing math, you're doing finance, you're kind of sticking in that bubble. Even if you do sport management, for the most part, it's business classes, it's a little bit of sport culture, but it's mostly the business aspect. Being in coaching, I had the whole spectrum of, I took business classes, marketing classes, current events classes, but I also took sports science, athletic training. I learned the background of everything. So that kind of started my philosophy of thinking that the more you learn, the better off you are. If you have a good base knowledge of kind of every facet and what you're working with, it helps you be better in your position. So that kind of brought me to my next part, where my senior year, everyone usually goes off and does an internship as part of this coaching and administration major. Some people left campus and went away for a semester. I thought, why am I going to go off-site when I'm working with arguably the top women's basketball college program in the country? Why would I go elsewhere when I was learning so much from them? So in addition to being a student manager for them, I also then asked Tanya Cardoza, who at the time was an assistant coach. I was like, hey, look, now I was terrified when I went to go ask her, because you never know if someone's going to shut you down. You don't want to be rejected. But I just kind of threw it out there and said, hey, look, I have to do this internship. Is there any chance I can do it here? Would you oversee me? And she actually said yes, which took me back, but that's why I asked. So she took me on. She was teaching me things about video. She had set me up with certain other people that work with the team within the athletic department. So after she sort of set me up initially, I kind of took the initiative and made my own schedule with different people. So I would make time with the video coordinator, help him with everything that he needed. Then I would go over to our sports information director, who gets out all of the communications for the team. I went and helped him see what he needed. I went to the athletic trainer. What can I do for you? How can I help you here? So same philosophy, learning everything, learning what makes the program work, and learning what makes the program successful. Another thing that I had done at college, not in relation to the team, but actually ended up helping me, and kind of along those lines of not being afraid to ask. My first day of school, I was walking through the field house. I was with my dad. We popped into the athletic department in there. It was the operations team. And we said, hey, are you looking for any student workers? They said, yep, we need game day operations people, and sign up here, come in tomorrow, and we'll set you up. So now I was working with the team. Now I got in another area of the athletic department. That taught me how to do game day operations. I learned what it took to, because I don't know about you, but I know when I was in college, or when I was in high school, I went to a college game. You don't notice all the things that it takes to actually get a game going. There's so much stuff behind the scenes to actually just get that tip off, or that face off, or that kickoff. So I learned a bit of that with that part of the athletic department. So when I wasn't working for the team for games, I was working as game day ops. That meant I was hosting referees or hosting teams, walking them to and from the field, making sure that they were set with anything that they needed. It's a lot of busy work, but it makes great connections, because if you're friendly, if you talk to people, if they like you, if you help them out, you might exchange some information, or maybe you reach out, hi, I met you the other day, and blah, 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 and they'll get back to you. So keep that in mind too. I'm trying to think now. So eventually I graduate from Temple. Now I had done this, from UConn. I did this internship under Tanya. Tanya Cardoza then goes on to be the head coach of Temple women's basketball the summer that I graduated. So I had actually at that time planned to go back to school for physical therapy. I had tried to reach out, apply for jobs, looking sort of in the director of ops direction. And unfortunately, I wasn't getting anything. So I said, okay, plan B, I'm gonna go back to school, I'm gonna do PT. As I was registering for school, I get a text from Tanya. Hey, have you taken the GRE? I hadn't. I said, no, but I could take it. I looked online, I said I could take it Wednesday, what do you need? And she said, well, I need a graduate assistant, and if you can take it and you can get into school, by all means. So this was like August 1st. School started like 3 weeks later. I took the GREs. I went down to Temple. I met with people. I decided I was just going to do the major of sport administration because I previously done something similar. I thought it was the easy way to just get into school and get down there. And I'm not joking when I say that I got accepted to school on a Friday and school started Monday. I moved to Philly that following Wednesday. So be on the fly. If someone presents you with an opportunity and it's something that you think that you want, take it. Don't hesitate. Someone asks you if you can do something. Can you take the GREs? Absolutely. As soon as possible, I can take them. Opportunities don't come around often. Sometimes they do, most times they don't. Take the opportunity when it's there. So now I go down to Tanya. I'm at Temple in Philly, and I basically become the video coordinator as the grad extern. Grad externship's a little different than an internship because they give you a stipend, but you also have to pay for school. So I did have student loans coming out of that. To be honest with you, it was totally worth it. I would do it again because it got me where I am today. So I'm there, I'm doing video coordinator stuff. I'm also, again, starting to reach out to various people in the athletic department, learning what other people do at Temple, making connections that way. Started taking on more and more responsibility. After my 2 years was up as grad extern, Tanya wanted to create a position for me to be full-time video coordinator. What ended up happening was that our director of ops decided to take another job. That job opened, and she promoted me to director of operations. Now, do you guys know what director of operations really entails? Is anybody familiar? No? Okay, so the best way that I can surmise what a director of ops does is that they take on every little thing behind the scenes of the team so that way the coaches can go out and coach and the players can go out and play. So I was the liaison between the athletic department and our coaching staff. If they needed to set up Tanya with interviews, I was a part of it. If they needed to get players to do some marketing shots, I was a part of it. If I had to check in with our academic advisor with the teams or with our players just to make sure that they were staying on track, we did that. I set up all the travel for the team. I set up all the meals for the team. I would go grocery shopping for the team. There were times we were on the road, I was taking orders for restaurants so that way we can get our food as quick as possible and get out. There was no part of the job that I was too big for. Whatever we needed in order to be as efficient and as successful as possible was what I did. I will tell you this, it's not an easy job. If you're someone who needs constant recognition or a constant pat on the back, it's probably not for you because there are very little thank yous, but there are also, it's very rewarding. Because again, you probably turn on the TV, you might turn on a game, you don't necessarily think about the fact that there was someone behind the scenes that got them on the plane. And I'll tell you, there were a couple times that players would go missing to go eating in the airport and you thought they were gonna miss the flight and you had to run and track them down. But you got them there. So number one, I would get into the game. I'd get us to shoot around. I'd get us to the hotel. I'd make sure that they had everything that they needed so that way when we went out and played, there was nothing disruptive in their routine. I did that job for 6 years. And after that, I decided it was time for me to move back home to Connecticut. I had enjoyed my time. I'll be honest with you guys, and I don't know, again, something that maybe I hadn't thought about before I got into this field. It's a very demanding field time-wise. I know when I was at Temple, I was always on call. So if we were supposed to have practice in the morning and the team wasn't practicing the way coach wanted and she decided that was it, we're coming back at night, didn't matter what I had going on at night, I was back at work that night. We worked on Thanksgiving. Sometimes we worked on Christmas. We worked basically every weekend. It's the nature of the job. And now not every position is like that. Some are a little more demanding than others. But something that I also want you guys to think about is work-life balance. And for me at Temple, I'll be honest, I didn't have a great work-life balance. So I got burned out a little bit. I decided it's time for me to come home. lucky for me, my current position opened up, and as Hallie said, I'm the Associate Athletic Director at St. Joseph High School in Trumbull, Connecticut. So the difference is still very demanding, still a lot of hours. I'm still here. But to be honest with you, it's not nearly the same amount of hours that it was when I was at Temple. So I'm working with all sports, not just one. I'm working with all of our coaches, and I get to know all of the student athletes. And I think that's my favorite part of having moved into this. Instead of just being with 15 student athletes that I'm hoping to make a difference with, now I'm with hundreds. Everything changed for me perspective-wise when I came here. At the end of the day, it's all about the betterment of the experience of the student athlete. So at Temple, because at the college level, it's a little bit more of a business than it is maybe at the high school level, which again, you don't really think about. But we wanted the best for our student athletes, but I'll be honest with you too. Sometimes it was just about what was best for the college, what was best for the brand, what was best for this. I come to the high school level now, it's about the student athlete. Right now, we're working so much trying to figure out how we can get back to our just regular conditioning, regular season. And we're trying to figure out a way, because I know all you guys have been sitting home, can't play the sports that you want to. And hopefully we can get back to the way that we were before, which I think it's heading in that direction, which is great. But that's pretty much what my journey has been, and where I'm at now. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Yeah, and as far as questions for everyone, you guys can just either raise your hand or type them out in chat. I actually have a few questions that I was kind of thinking about as you're talking. So to the point of, you're talking about to always take the opportunities that are given to you, because, they don't come around very often. I was interested how you maybe get over kind of the fear factor of taking opportunities quickly when they're pretty major decisions, and maybe you have to think about them pretty quickly, and you don't have much time to kind of think about adjusting to them.
Right. So that's a great question. So I think you really, in a very, like you said, it's going to be quick. I know when the opportunity was presented to me at Temple, it terrified me. When I realized that within days I was going to be moving from Connecticut to Philadelphia, I mean, I was pretty emotional about it. I'm not going to lie. All my friends were in Connecticut, even college, high school, everyone I was still talking to. What I thought about was, all right, I'd been applying to all these jobs. I didn't get any. All right, fine. I made a plan B. So how much did it really mean to me? Did I really want it? And the answer was yes, I really wanted it. I also thought about the fact that this was Tanya's first team that she was ever going to coach. Now, who knows? Maybe Tanya was going to become the next Pat Summitt. And she's doing pretty well for herself over there. It was exciting for me, at least, to think that I was going to be a part of those first couple staffs. And I trusted her. She had helped me out with my internship. I thought she'd be supportive. Something that helped for me too was one of my classmates had also been hired as an assistant coach for her, so I knew at least I'd have her there. But I think really what it comes down to is just, I've said I want this. Is this how badly that I want it? And another point that you kind of brought up with your question is that a lot of athletics is all over the place. You don't know where your next job is coming from. You kind of have to be willing to move at some point if this is what you want. I think that if you're able to find a job locally and continue to grow in it, and you're where you want to be, that's fantastic. But if you're someone who's constantly striving to go higher and do something else and move on and progress your career, inevitably you're going to have to kind of move through the country. So that's something that you guys should think about. And this is really, I'm talking more so on the college level, professional level. At the high school level, it's not as much. But if you want to work your way up a little bit.
Gotcha. Thank you. I had just one more question, kind of how you talked about balancing, work life and, personal life. You talked a little bit about it, but I was wondering how one, I guess, finds this balance easily? Is it kind of just like trial and error, or is it, I don't know how that process is, I guess.
Yeah, another very good question. So it took me a very long time to figure that out, because I was someone who wanted to be the first one in the office and I wanted to leave after everybody else. And I did that for a while. Um, and I think it's okay to do stuff like that in the beginning of a job. So even when I came over to St. Joe's, my first year, same thing. Anytime someone asks, can you cover this? Sure, no problem. Can you stay late for this? Yeah, no problem. And by my second year, I had to say, okay, now I understand the lay of the land. Now I get it. Now I know where it's really necessary for me to be. At the same time, I started giving more suggestions to my boss where, let's say we had late games on Monday and on Tuesday, we were able to leave at a normal time. Sometimes we were scheduling late meetings on that Tuesday. And so I would just suggest, well, why don't we keep it on the Monday? We're here anyways. We'll keep that meeting late. That way on Tuesday, we both can go home at a reasonable hour. And it's trial and error. And like I said, it's kind of if you prove yourself in the beginning and people understand that you're someone who's reliable and that you're someone who's willing to do what you have to get the job done right. When you start to take some more liberties and say, hey, you know what, I really need this weekend because I have a friend's wedding that I have to go to. People take you seriously. They know you're not just backing out because you back out of everything. You don't. So it's establishing trust with the people that you work with. And it's also just, you start off small, you know, hey, I'll tell you 4 weeks in advance I need this day off. Then it gets to a thing where you go, hey, you know what, listen, we got to split this up better. We're both here all the time. It's not doing any good for either of us. We need to, you work one weekend, I'll work one weekend. You cover one night, I'll cover one night. And people respect that because at the end of the day, everybody has to be able to go home and kind of clear yourself from work. You can't just be focused on work. It's too much. You're going to burn out. And we all love sports, right? So you think, oh, well, it's great. I'm only here. I'm working a basketball game. Basketball's my favorite. It's no big deal. You're right. It's fun. However, it's still work. And you're still not with your friends, or you're still not with your family, or you're still not able to go to that function that you wanted to go to. So be smart about it. Be strategic. Maybe sacrifice a little bit. Hey, you know what? I'll take this weekend if it means that I know that I can get off for this in the future. But think about it. Don't just immerse yourself entirely for years and years and years. I think you preserve yourself that way if you make sure that you reserve time for yourself.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah. That.
Any other questions for now? No? Okay. So there.
Actually,
yeah.
I'm really sorry. In general, how do you think that working with a very good team and being really involved in that sort of athletic community in college impacted your college experience?
Oh, I wouldn't trade my college experience for the world. Whenever I think about if there's a time that I would ever go back to, it would be college. I met my best friends from school, from there, from working with the team. It was basically like being part of a fraternity. I mean, I had a purpose. It helped me stay organized in school. I'm a pretty organized person. I don't procrastinate much, but knowing that I'd have practice for 3 days, or that I was leaving for this trip, or that I had this game, it would help me schedule my classwork around that, which helped me stay organized. I also met a lot of other student athletes that I'm still in touch with currently. I still know the coaches very well. I still get tickets to games sometimes, which is really cool, for free, because who doesn't like free stuff? And I just think that, I mean, even the coaches at UConn now, if I asked, I don't know if you guys know who Chris Daly is. She's the associate head coach at UConn. She was still a reference for me when I got my newest job. So they, especially UConn, they're very close knit. Once you're part of the group, you're part of the group. And whenever you go back, you feel that way. So it was like a second family to me while I was there, which was great. Anybody else? Okay. So I've already mentioned a couple of these. You guys have brought them up. But just really what I really want to like hammer home are just a couple of, I guess, some advice that I would give. Like we said, make connections with people. Sometimes it's about who you know. Learn as much as possible, but it's really knowing people. Because sometimes when you're interviewing for a position, if someone respectful or respectable can vouch for you, it just gives you a leg up over someone else. If you have the exact same resume or something close, but if I have Chris Daly giving me a recommendation, I might get a little more of an advantage because people know who she is around here. Like I said, don't be afraid to ask questions. The worst case scenario is someone can say no. I know any time when I was at Temple, and I would do the same thing here, if someone asked me to be an intern for me, there's a million things I can come up with for them to do. Likewise, there are times that I might not have something for them to do specifically, but hey, I know I have to come up with an itinerary for this trip. Why don't I see what your itinerary would look like? So I would do what I can to make sure that they learned as much as they could to go on to the next thing. And most people are willing to help. So don't be afraid to ask. If you don't, you're only going to hurt yourself in the long run because odds are that person would have told you yes. If they tell you no, no big deal, move on to the next. Get out of your comfort zone. That's kind of going back to Hallie, your question, how you make decisions on moving quickly. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You stay in your comfort zone, you're never going to move anywhere. Do you have a question? Oh, okay. Let's see here. Learn as many areas as possible. I know I've repeated that a couple times, and get involved. Because the one way to know that you're going to learn something new and be a part of something is just getting involved. If you sit back, no one's going to bring it to you. It's all great to learn in class, but I'll tell you that learning firsthand is the best way. And I mean, that's kind of my advice for you guys heading into this field. Does anybody here know specifically maybe what area of athletics you want to work at?
For me, at least, I know it was actually this summer is kind of when I realized I wanted to do something with athletics, definitely in college and maybe, you know, past that. Right now it's as a player, but I'm also really interested in doing something similar as what you did, like becoming a team manager or even I know some of my friends who are in college right now working in athletics, you know, they do film and, you know, like edit videos and stuff for teams, which seems really interested to me. But, you know, even just hearing what you have to say, I realize now that there are so many more positions that I can kind of look into as far as that goes.
Like film is interesting because there's a number of things that you can do with that. You can work with the specific team and like exchanging film and cutting film and getting stuff ready for the team itself. And then there's the marketing aspect. There are times I know, which I had learned at UConn, is that Keith, who was the video coordinator at the time, he would break down film for them, but then he would also make highlight videos for them to watch in the locker room before they went out into the court for game day. So that was something that I picked up. When I went to Temple, I started doing that for them too. And then the marketing department started taking my videos and playing them for certain stuff because it's like, I'm making them for the team, but hey, if they're good enough to maybe attract other people in a marketing sense, why not? So for you, I would say, so if you play rugby, right? Even just sit down with your coaches in your off time. What do you do? How do you do this? How do you get this way? What about recruiting? What's the travel like? Can I help you break down film? If you offer help, most people aren't going to say no. I guess the next thing, well, pretty much, I guess this is kind of the last thing that I would bring up. I don't know how much time Shannon spent on this with you guys a couple weeks ago, but now, because of the pandemic, Shannon Hovind started the Untitled podcast, and she's also building that into a whole different kind of empire. She has amazing ideas of how she wants to get this information out there. This is really about just women in sports and how to give women in sports a voice, considering that you could go on the podcast app right now and grab a million different just sport podcasts that talk about football and NBA and men's basketball and all the men's sports, but no one just has a general female sport podcast. So lucky for me, Shannon started this. Her and I work together. We have a lot of conversations about female athletics in general. Obviously that's our connection. And she kind of said she wanted me involved in the podcast. So far it's been a blast. I'm on about every other episode. She does an interview with somebody and then she'll talk to me and we'll do like a kind of we call it a wild card. And so I love the episodes listening to her that I'm not on, of the people that she interviews. She's getting some really cool people on, and just giving people a voice. I know have any of you listened to it since she's been on? Yeah. So she has even given a voice to her athletes, her specific players who go to the school that I work at as well. And it's just a way for people to feel heard. And it's supportive and it's empowering. And so far it's been a lot of fun. I hope it continues for a long time. And I think she's doing great stuff. So, I mean, even something as simple as that, we're in a time right now where there's a lot of activism. There's a lot of athlete activism. People using their platforms. I don't know if you guys watch the WNBA, but they're all wearing Breonna Taylor on their jerseys right now. Even in the NBA, I mean, Black Lives Matters on the court and stuff like that, which is very cool. So we have so many platforms these days as athletes to get your voice heard and to get ideas together and to make a difference. And I think getting involved in that sort of stuff is very important too. And I think honestly, that's something too that might help you find more value in your work. Because if you are an ops person and you find yourself the main part of your day trying to go out and buy gum for people, it may not be rewarding at the end of the day if you realize that you're giving people a platform to voice their opinion and their ideas of change, that helps as well. So again, any other questions that anybody has?
I think I have a few kind of floating around in my head. This whole talk has been really helpful in kind of hearing your story. So thank you for that, first off. I guess I'm curious, because you've worked through, so many different jobs in the athletic field. I guess because a lot of them, like you said, are different or, aren't necessarily perfect depending on your temperament or, what you want out of a job, I guess. Would you say it's similar to the idea of just like trial and error, just trying a bunch of jobs and seeing which ones kind of work for you? Or are there better ways to kind of figure out what job would fit for you the best?
So I think sometimes it's just about getting your foot in the door. So you might say, hey, you know what? I think video is really cool and I'm going to start there. You might go into video and go, yeah, this is okay, but you know what? Marketing is actually really cool because I see that they're doing this and this idea. So sometimes just getting into the athletic department then helps you advance into other areas. And that's why I mentioned make sure you learn as much as possible while you're in there, because you may gravitate towards something else. Likewise too, sometimes it's who you're working for that you might not vibe with. You might be okay with the job. It just might be the circumstances that aren't the best. So for me, I thought I wanted to coach when I was first in college. I got into the background being a manager, become director of ops, that's all background. And I kind of realized, hey, you know what? Background's what I'm good at. So while I might joke, complain about the fact that I bought gum occasionally, which sounds ridiculous, again, at the end of the day, it was about whatever was best for the team. And I'll tell you now at St. Joe's, I'm still doing all the background. I still like it. It's just that at Temple and the travel and the demand at the time wasn't where my heart was. So I moved on. So I don't want to say necessarily trial and error. It's just you also might be in a position which you love And this is how I felt at Temple too. I loved it. I thought it was great, but I kind of hit a ceiling too. I wasn't going to get any more responsibility than I already had. I was doing the maximum I could with it. And it was time to put myself in a position to then go further. And that's where I am now. So I just think, like I said, get involved in as many aspects as possible. And some you might find you gravitate towards more, some you may kind of could do without, but it's good to know all of them. Does that help? Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess kind of a follow-up to that, I'm curious what I think you touched on it a little bit, but almost like the mental aspect of going through these different jobs, and also even like that first step, like you were saying, like getting your, just foot through the door. I guess the mental side of just, asking a bunch of questions, like just emailing a bunch of people and stuff like that. Because I know I've gotten better at it, but I know it can still be kind of a daunting thing to do, just to kind of put yourself out there like that. So I was wondering if you have any advice as far as, I guess, kind of the mental aspect of all that.
Yeah, so it could be very daunting. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes you send emails to people and they don't respond. So a lot of times email isn't even the best way. This is kind of when I say make connections with people, because so let's say now you're applying for a job at UConn or something. Now you know me. Right now you could reach out to me, now I can vouch for you. So that takes off the edge a little bit. Hey, you know what, Hallie, I told so-and-so at UConn that you were going to be reaching out. They're looking for your email. Sometimes that helps a little bit. So that's why if you utilize the speakers that are in this series, Shannon, Annie, who else has come on here, they could know someone who then could help you too. Sometimes, like if you're in college per se, just walk into someone's office in a department and say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I was interested in starting. Because sometimes if you're face-to-face with someone, it's a little different. I get an email, I get 100 emails, I might gloss over yours and move on to the next one because it's a parent that needs something. And then I forget to go back to it. If you're standing in front of someone, it's a little more, okay, why don't you give me your name? Why don't you give me this? And then you turn around and you follow up after, hi, it was so nice meeting you. Thanks for taking the time. I'm gonna reach out to you again if you don't mind. So that sort of helps. Sometimes I would bring a friend along with me as far as I can take them. And then I'd say, okay, you wait here and I'm gonna go inside this office. Whatever gives you the support that you need to feel it. And then, again, what's the worst case? They say no. Okay, they say no. So you're in no better or worse position than you were before. Doesn't do anything else to you. That's pretty much what I would say for that. Again, I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And yeah, if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to either raise your hand on Zoom or just type it out in the chat. Maybe we can just give like a minute or two for people to kind of think of questions. And I know I'll always kind of have a few rattling around in my brain too.
And again, too, if any of you want to send me an email after this, if you want to share my email, I'm happy to answer anything. Something pops in your mind later tonight or tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, I'll make sure to send out your contact information. I am interested. I know you mentioned that you played some intramural sports in college, and I know I don't really know how. I'm a junior this year, so I'm still trying to figure out kind of how my life is going to look, and even the next like 5 or 3 years. And I know a lot of colleges have some really interesting kind of intramural and club sport environment. So, and I've heard kind of mixed ideas of how much people like them and what that kind of looks like for your schedule. So I was interested what that looked like for you when you were at UConn.
Yeah, so my friends and I, well, first I would hang around the gym constantly. I would just get up shots. And my kind of philosophy is, because often guys playing pickup don't ask girls to play, I would just take up the court before they would get on there. So that way, if they tried to play while I was shooting around, I'd stay in the middle of their game until they'd say, okay, fine, you can play next. So I met a lot of people that way, and then was asked to be on a couple teams from there. And then as like sophomore, junior year went on, my core group of friends and I created our own teams. So I played basketball, inner tube water polo, soccer, softball, flag football, I think kickball. I mean, they have so many different stuff, and it's fun. And a lot of them are later at night or maybe on the weekends, but in college, it really doesn't faze you as much. You can kind of get your work done and then go play a game at 9 or 10 o'clock and then go home and be fine the next morning. I think I also played volleyball. I was constantly on teams, and it's fun to do with your friends. Sometimes we were really good. We knew the sports that we were going to be really good at and that we took seriously. And then there were the sports like inner tube water polo that we were all just trying to stay on the tube. So, it's just a good way to meet other people. I met a lot of the staff for the rec department that way too. And working with the team, I kind of got to know them because they all worked in different areas as well. So it's just a good way to let loose and also keep kind of what you had in high school, where it's just fun. It's not all the practice. It's just pick up and you have a great time and you're with your friends, you blow off steam. So I recommend it for everybody. Maybe not as many sports as I did, maybe just a couple a season, but still always a good time.
Cool. Yeah, from what I've heard, they sound like a really a fun outlet when you're in college, especially if you have, stress of classes and stuff like that. I know you mentioned that the major that I think you ended up choosing, the coaching and management or something similar to that, you weren't aware that it existed until, like someone kind of told you about it. So I was interested, I guess I'm not really sure how to phrase this question. I guess it kind of just came to me. But, as someone who's, going to college relatively soon, which is weird to think about, I guess, do you think if it's about more just, researching, on their websites and stuff like that, like the colleges are really just kind of talking to different administrators and kind of just playing around with the ideas of different majors and opportunities?
That's what, I would say, to talk to your advisor and just kind of give them an idea of, hey, I think I'm interested in this, and this. What's the lowdown? I know I was talking to my advisor and I was like, I think communications. And he was like, what do you mean you think? I'm like, well, I really want to coach. I don't know how I do that. Oh, well, hey, we have this major. Now, the thing that he told me was that the major was pretty exclusive. They really only let in athletes because the head of the major, his name was Joe Maroney. He was a longtime soccer coach at UConn. He had won their first and second national championship like back in the 80s. He was an old guy. So he was real stringent about like really only athletes in this, nobody else, this and that. And I was like, well, I'm a manager. I can kind of make it work, right? He was like, okay, fine. So sometimes you just kind of have to talk your way into it. And I think if you talk to your advisor, they're the ones who can say, if you're like, I'm interested in these certain areas, okay, well, this is what we have to offer you. I think unless you are dead set on a major for something, I would pick a school that you like and then figure out if they have the sort of majors that'll keep you satisfied there. And really, if I'm being honest with you, your major isn't always make or break, right? Yes, I was in the coaching administration major, fine. I was part of the basketball team. That's what got me my next step to Temple, right? It really had nothing to do with me being in coaching and administration. I could have now I did the internship because I had to, but I still knew Tanya. There still could have been a way if I had said to her, hey, I'm interested in this. She still might have. So it's not necessarily your major. It's not like, well, if I don't do this, then I can never be in that. That's not true. In fact, like I said, I went to Temple so fast that I just picked sport administration because I knew I can get in it. I knew I did it. I actually kind of wish I went and gotten like my teacher's certificate, because I didn't realize that one day I'd be at the high school level. And now I don't have the certification to be able to be an AD at the public school. I'd have to go back to school for it. If I would have known, maybe I could have done that instead. But I think that there's still room for you to have the career that you want, regardless if you're in that major. This isn't like nursing or being a doctor or being a lawyer. Those are different, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, I think it'll be cool, at least personally, to kind of explore my options wherever I end up going. But thank you all so much for coming. I know some people kind of had to come in and out today, which is a little more unusual, but thank you all so much for being here. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak today, Stacey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great talking to you guys.
Thank you. All right, cool. I'll see you guys later. Bye.